Welcome to the Decoding Attachment Styles mini course. I'm your host, Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. In this course, you're going to find 3 videos to transform how you understand yourself and your relationships. Now, this is all about neurobehavioral programming, actual brain wiring, not merely psychology. All of science put together. And it's based on peer-reviewed neuroscience, not just theories and hypotheses. This is proven cutting-edge research happening in laboratories all around the world right now. In this series, you're going to learn a couple of key things. First, in video 1, what attachment styles really are and how they work in your life. Video 2, how to identify and interrupt patterns in yourself and in others. And video 3, the skills and experiences roadmap to transform your attachment style forever. Now, why does all of this matter to you personally? Well, first of all, because your attachment pattern runs automatically. It's like the background software running in your system. These were installed without your permission during your childhood. When you were too small to even form real memories, these programmed into the parts of your brain responsible for fear and decisions. But you can identify these even if you don't know them yet. And then when you identify them, you can interrupt them. And when you can interrupt them, you can rewrite them. Now, this is the most important personal work that you're ever going to do in your life, and it will impact every relationship you ever have for the rest of your life. Now, to get you started in the best possible way, we have to begin by understanding what an attachment style actually is. And I mean really understanding it, down to the neurological level that most people never talk about. So before we can decode the 8 specific attachment styles, what you need is to understand what an attachment style actually is. Not just behaviorally, like most people do, but at the deepest levels of your neurobiology. An attachment style is built from 6 specific components that work together to create your automatic relational patterns. First, you had foundational experiences. Foundational experiences are what shaped your initial attachment patterns when you were just a small child. Primarily, we're looking at ages 0 from the moment of birth up through 3 years, when your brain was mostly plastic, meaning moldable and changeable. You had repeated interactions with your primary caregivers. These aren't one-time events, by the way. They're patterns that are repeated thousands of times over and over and over, and they teach your brain some key lessons about what your place is in the world, how others will treat you, and what kind of love, care, and kindness you should expect. Some example foundational experiences would include how your caregivers responded to you when you cried, whether your needs were met consistently or inconsistently, the emotional climate of your home, calm or chaotic, or cold, or frantic, or angry, how conflict was handled all around you between the other people in your family, physical presence versus the absence of caregivers. Even if your dad was never in your life, he left a big echo. Now, I want you to understand the neurobiological reality here, okay? Oxytocin and dopamine are 2 key chemicals we must talk about. Oxytocin is a bonding hormone that makes you feel safe and belonging and cared for. It releases in the absence of stress when you feel close to someone physically and emotionally. Dopamine is a reward system. When something that you do brings pleasure or benefit, your system releases a trickle of dopamine, almost like a little bit of sugar, that says, wow, that felt good. I should remember that. And in the future, when I get a chance, I should do it again because it felt great. It was good for me in that moment. These are key hormones and transmitters that we must remember as we go through. I'm also going to teach you some more as we keep going. But I want you to understand right now, your system is designed to feel safe and loved. And it's also designed to reward you when you do something that, in the short term at least, feels like it has benefit and is pleasurable. You also have something called mirroring neurons. In your brain, parts of your neurons, your brain capacity, say, what are they feeling? I should feel something similar. Especially as a small infant, you look at your mother to see if she's scared of something new, and if she's calm, you reflect her calm and stay calm about the new thing you're experiencing. If you look at your mother and she's terrified and stressed and nervous, you will feel terrified, stressed, and nervous about the new experience. Now, this also happens if you're sitting there playing and you look over and there's dad and he looks angry. You feel that anger and feeling inside yourself, and you might respond with confusion about what he's feeling and why. Those mirroring neurons copy your parents' emotional regulation patterns, and your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, learns what's safe versus what's threatening. This is your amygdala, a little almond-shaped place inside your brain, before you had conscious memories, learning what the dangers are. Now, there are some very critical windows we have to be aware of here. And I want to be clear, it's not that you get formed in these places and you're doomed for the rest of your life, but your foundational experiences that set your initial programming come from these places. First is 0 to 18 months, from birth up to a year and a half. This is your primary attachment circuit formation, the critical window. Will people feed me, protect me, keep me warm? When I'm scared, do they come to me and hold me? Okay, very basic needs. You can't even really walk during this window. You are utterly and completely and totally helpless. Imagine the child who gets put into intensive care for 3 or 4 weeks at birth and learns that no one will ever come to help them. Or the child who, after 2 weeks of being with mom, is suddenly dumped 12 hours a day into daycare. This is sending a signal of I'm not with my mother, or no one's helping me. I'm among strangers. I'm in a cold environment. I don't have people who protect me, right? Alone, isolated, scared. There's a lot of things that can happen in this window. A lot of you had problems because of this window, okay? Now, at 18 months up to 3 years, it's a consolidation and expansion to your secondary caregivers. First, there's mom and dad, and then there's additionals of who else do I have? Who else is around me? What are they teaching me? Are there any conflicts? Are there anger, fighting, brokenness? How do they act? More generalization. Now, 3 years up to that window, formation. And now it begins growing through those processes, through your childhood, learning, cementing, but understand that every experience you have is now filtered through those pre-biased pieces. Your brain already believes what it believes, now it looks for proof. So things that are more neutral or ambiguous will be taken as evidence, even if it's not explicitly evidence. This moves up until adolescence. It's a second major reorganization window during puberty. Your missing early windows lead to puberty difficulties as you move forward into acceptance by peers, possibility of romance, connection, reproduction. All of it is a second window of, is everything I believed there also true here? And your brain says it probably is, so it's still biased, but now it tries to figure it out again. And if you're clumsy and nervous and scared, and everyone else is too, you're probably not going to have positive experiences that teach you, no, love is great, let's forget our fear. You say, wow, I was right to be afraid, and in fact, I'm not as afraid as I should be. Crank up the fear worse. This is where teenage anger and teenage depression, teenage anxiety really starts to get worse, by the way. It's not a normal biological process. It's something we've created through attachment issues. Now, these missing early windows that you might have experienced, again, they don't doom you for life, but they do require more intensive work later to correct. Think of this like language learning. It's easier to learn languages when you're young, right? Kids growing up in bilingual homes learn both, just flows easily because it's where you are. It's still possible fully when you're older to learn all these additional languages. It's just not as natural or easy, and frankly, you don't have as much time to invest into it. But I want you to understand this. These thousands of repeated experiences, they didn't just create memories, they created something much deeper and more permanent. Pillar number 2 is implicit beliefs. This is an imprinted family model. Your family imprinted a model on you of how relationships work, how family is supposed to work. It's an unconscious blueprint of how relationships function. It's absorbed through thousands of interactions, and it's encoded in your implicit memory. You probably can't articulate it, but you feel it as normal. If I say, imagine a father and son, Boom, there's an imprinted model. You're going to have a hard time articulating it fully to me to get the vision, but you have a model. Imagine a mother and daughter. Boom, there's your imprinted model. Again, hard to articulate fully, but you know it when you see it. Here's the problem. You don't know it when you see it. You know the version you saw and experienced. This is your operating system for all future relationships. Imagine a husband and wife. First model is parents. Maybe they weren't even husband and wife. They couldn't even be in the same room. They hated each other. They were together for one night and then refused to be on the same continent ever again. That's what your brain pulls in as an imprinted family model. Men and women who hate each other. Now, there's some key components of an imprinted model. First is your identity. This is who I am in relationships. I am worthy or I am unworthy. I am safe or I am unsafe. Beliefs about others is another piece. This is who other people are. They are trustworthy. They are untrustworthy. What rules exist in relationships? This is how relationships work. What gets rewarded? What gets punished? What roles exist inside relationships? It's your position in a family system, right? What emotional norms exist? What feelings are acceptable versus what feelings are forbidden? Now, this is an imprinted system. It's not chosen. Remember that this model was installed in you before language or conscious memory. That's one reason you have a hard time visualizing it really in totality or articulating it, because you've never put words to these ideas that were formed before you had language. You have images and feelings and impressions. They're encoded in your right hemisphere of your brain and into your limbic system, fight, flight, fawn, freeze, into your amygdala, the fear center of your brain. These feel like objective reality. They don't feel like a learned pattern because it's all you've ever known. If I say to you, imagine a parent and child, you think of your painful, lonely, cold, disconnected family, but I think of my child and me and our warm, loving, intimate connection. There's not one perfect model that we can look at until we start to become more articulate. Imagine a secure parent and child. Now the story shifts and you may not even have a vision for that yet. And that's one of your gaps. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Now, your mirroring neurons, they, again, copied your parents' patterns. You had no choice in what got installed into you. You didn't get to select, when we get stressed out, we withdraw and hide from other people until the problems go away. That wasn't a conscious decision you made, but now it's installed in you because that's what your parents did. And when you tried to go to them to talk to them, they punished you in some way, either through withdrawal or anger or hurt or just whatever it was. And you pulled away and learned, okay, I'm never going to do that again. Now, the right hemisphere, the emotional side of your brain, this is your hemispheric reality. Your right hemisphere is dominant during ages 0 to 3. It processes emotion, relation, and nonverbal information. The left side, the left hemisphere, language, logic, wasn't fully online yet. This is why you can't remember these experiences that you had learning when you were 1 year old, but your right brain and your body remember everything. Now, there's an intergenerational mechanism here at play. It's not just a behavioral, you've learned to behave differently. There's a biological reality as well. Your parents' oxytocin levels when they were an infant predicted your oxytocin levels in your infancy through biobehavioral synchrony. Your heart rates synchronized in the womb with your mother, and then after birth, when your mother held you, if she was stressed out, heart rate synchronized. Even your brain waves, we've found now, could have been coordinated. Your mother's nervous system literally programmed your nervous system. So you had these foundational experiences that created an imprinted model, but your childhood did not stop at age 3. Now, you had reaffirmative experiences, and this is point number 3 for how you were formed into your behavior patterns. Reaffirmative experiences are experiences from later childhood and teenage years, and even your young adulthood life, okay? These experiences you shared when you were nervous and scared that you didn't deserve love, but went out and tried to make friends and got bullied instead. Or when you were afraid that people of the opposite sex, like your mother or your father, wouldn't care for you, but you went and got a partner anyway when you were 15 and they mistreated you and broke your heart. These reaffirmative experiences condition you back into the beliefs. And again, you're not walking into them neutrally, you're walking into them already biased. So whatever happens is going to be filtered through that lens, and you're probably going to withhold in relationships, be misunderstood, and then create self-fulfilling prophecies, which then get reinterpreted through your biased lens. So you're going to see the world the way you were trained to see the world, pretty much no matter what happens. The imprinted family model is then confirmed. See, this is how the world works. This is how I'll be treated. This is how other people act. Every similar experience strengthens those neural pathways in the brain. We used to think that human brains don't change after childhood. What we've actually found is that they don't refuse to change. They would change. It's just that we don't have experiences that would change them. If I never, ever, ever, ever go to the gym and start pumping weights, I will say, wow, my body never changes. But if I go pump weights, my muscles change radically. And I say, wow, my muscles change. That's amazing. Same thing with your brain. Your brain doesn't form in permanently. It forms and then doesn't bother changing. Now let's take a deeper look because I really want you to understand this. A lot of people come in and say, Adam, I've never seen someone act the way you're claiming secure people would act. Yes, let's talk about that reaffirmation. First, you unconsciously begin to seek situations that match your imprinted model because you will have skills to do there and it will make sense and it will actually make you less afraid to walk into pain than to walk into uncertainty. Okay? You would rather be in pain than be unfamiliar with what's going to happen. It's a weird thing. When faced with new experiences, you then interpret them through your existing lens. Your behavior elicits responses from others that confirm your beliefs. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at a neurological level. Now, there's selective attention that needs to be conversated about here, okay? There's a confirmation bias built into your brain. You notice and remember things that confirm your imprinted model. You dismiss and forget contradictions. Your brain says those are flukes. Don't track it. Not worthy of time. That's an exception. That doesn't really happen. Don't worry about that. Someone's kind and nice to you. Well, that's unusual. They must have had a weird alternative model. You know, they had an ulterior secret motive that they wanted from me. I don't know why that happened, but that's rare. We don't even have to worry about it. Yes, this one terrible thing that person did. Everyone is that way. This happens automatically in your reticular activating system. This isn't you sitting there going, I'm not going to pay attention to that kindness. Your brain goes, nope, and removes it from your own awareness. Let's break this down into some of the attachment patterns, which we are going to go through deeper a little bit later. But first, you've heard me talk about these a lot, I'm sure. An anxiously attached child will become more clingy. Now, because they're clingy, it feels uncomfortable and confusing to others, so their peers are likely to pull away. That anxious child confirms people leave me. I needed help and they abandoned me. It's not that people abandon you, it's that they were nervous and confused about what you were doing. Your anxiety created the loop. An avoidant child acts heavily independent. The adults stop offering to help because the child pushes them away each time. And then the child confirms, yep, I figured. I'm on my own. No one's coming to help me. A disorganized child has explosive reactions. The adults respond inconsistently based on how they feel that day, which is what created the disorganized attachment style in the first place. And that confirms to the child that the world is chaos. I can never predict how anyone will act. All of these experiences, they crystallize into something very specific called an algorithm. Now, your attachment algorithm is a cause and effect belief system that generates your attachment patterns. The core logic that provides your automatic responses is present inside here. And you do have a logic to this thinking. Even if it's not correct logic, there is logic. It's an if-then formula. If X happens, then Y must be true. So I must do Z. This is the source code of your attachment pattern, okay? There's a structure of these attachment algorithms. Let's talk about this. So first, you have a trigger perception. You see something and your brain says, this situation means blank. Then there's a core belief activation, which means I am blank or others are blank. And this leads to a predicted outcome. Therefore, this will happen blank with a protective response. So I must blank. Now, all of this happens in milliseconds before conscious thought is even there. Your amygdala fires off in 0.3 seconds, a third of a second, before you can even consciously react or know what's happening. Again, let's break this down by the styles, which we are going to go through deeper here in a moment. But anxious attachment will say, distance. I notice distance. Distance means abandonment. That means I'm not enough, which means they're going to leave me, which means I must cling or pursue. Avoidant people will say, I noticed closeness. Closeness means engulfment. That means others will hurt me, which means I'll be controlled. I must create distance. A disorganized person might think, connection. I notice connection happening. But connection means danger. And I can't trust anyone. That means chaos is coming. I have to approach, but I also have to retreat simultaneously. The speed here, your thalamus in your brain, right? The thalamus, that portion of that brain, it has two pathways. There's a high road, which is slow, about 300 to 500 milliseconds, okay? And a low road, fast, 100 milliseconds, like boom, okay? Which decision am I making? Is this a deadly danger decision, low road, or something I can think about and spend a little more time on? Your attachment algorithm runs on the low road. You consciously thinking as a human being, I would like to have better relationships. I will stop chasing my partner, right? I will stop pulling away. 300 to 500 milliseconds. 5 times faster. That's your anxious attachment or your avoidant attachment is 5 times faster than I've decided to make a change. No, you won't. Your attachment algorithm runs on the low road. You cannot outthink something that fast, but you can rewire it. Now, this algorithm doesn't just sit dormant, by the way. It activates constantly, generating what we call your attachment pattern. Now, the attachment pattern is the algorithm, but in action. These are the behaviors that come out of the sequence inside your brain. It's a complete sequence from activation through reaction that plays out inside your relationship. So first we have what's called the circuit. And the circuit is basically the complete sequence from trigger through reaction. I'm triggered. I'm feeling and going through beliefs. I have a behavioral reaction. You react, okay? This is the imprinted family model in action. It consists of the algorithm, the context, the interpretation, and the trigger. This is the program running inside your nervous system. Now, it's called a circuit because the same neural networks all fire together repeatedly. Inside your brain, the same networks and systems and structures all fire together in a loop. Continuously each time. It creates a closed loop that's hard to then exit. You can't get out of that pattern because they're all used to triggering around each other in that pattern. It says when this happens, send the signal, light the beacons, and everything flows. That's why it's very hard to interrupt if you don't know what you're doing. And every repetition is strengthened and reinforced. Yes, that worked. Do it even faster next time. Think of this like water constantly running down a hill. You've seen the Grand Canyon and pictures of things like that. This carves a deeper groove with each passage of time. Okay? Now, what actually kicks off this circuit? The beginning, the trigger. Now, a trigger is an exact feeling, an emotion, a physical cue, a change of events, a perception, a memory. Okay? It can be something external, something happens, or something internal, a thought, a memory, a feeling. This is usually related to your core attachment wounds. By the way, we talked about that a little bit ago. We're going to talk about more triggers, though, because I want you to really get this. This is the spark that activates the circuit and begins the process. You can have emotional triggers. You might be feeling dismissed, feeling ignored, feeling criticized, feeling controlled. You can have physical triggers, a tone of voice, a facial expression, body language. We know, for example, that your amygdala is 340% more likely to view a neutral facial expression as dangerous or threatening or scary if you have insecure attachment style. 340% more likely. Physical, okay? Body language is also included in there. Number 3 is situational, a partner pulling away, a partner being late, a partner seeming distant, a partner seeming emotional, a partner seeming upset, a partner seeming angry. Or sensory, a smell, a sound, a touch that reminds you of your childhood. Okay? Triggers are powerful. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, processes them before conscious awareness. It's linked to survival memories from your childhood. It floods through your system with cortisol, stress hormone, and adrenaline, which amps you up. And your body can be activated by triggers that you're not even consciously aware of. Now, once you are triggered, your nervous system shifts into a specific state. We call this the state, okay? Your nervous system's position is included here. Fight, flight, fawn, freeze. It's your neurological activation. Which one do you land on in your limbic system? Now let's go through those 4 limbic states. First is fight. It could be anger, confrontation, demands, control, even spinning the narrative, arguing, right? Anxiously attached people who are scared can still fight by disagreeing, by pushing back, by counteracting the narrative, right? Disagreeing, fighting. If you can't do that, or you don't want to hurt the other person, your brain might instead say flight, withdraw, avoid, shut down, run away, distance, leap out the window and escape. If that's not going to work, you have fawn down below that. People pleasing, over accommodating, loss of boundaries. Just make them happy. Just make the problem stop. If they're happy enough, they'll stop attacking or stop leaving or stop hurting. And if that also doesn't work, you only have one place left to go, which is freeze, paralysis, inability to think or act, dissociation, shutting down, loss of language, even loss of senses. You just shut down. Now, there's something strange happening not only in your brain, but in your chest. You have your vagus nerve, one of the longest nerves in your entire body, and there's something called polyvagal theory. Okay? Your vagus nerve has 3 key states based on how your brain and pathways are feeling. You have what's called your ventral vagal situation, where you feel socially engaged, connected, safety. This is the goal. Calm, deep breathing, relaxed, right? Your chest is open, your arms and shoulders are back. You feel good. You have a sympathetic state, fight or flight is mobilized here, and fawn. Sympathetic is scared, nervous, sympathy, pathos, feelings. You are activated in your feelings. Nervous, rapid breathing, kind of more shut down, anxiety, even panic symptoms. And then you have dorsal vagal, especially a dorsal vagal shutdown, freeze response, shutdown, collapse. Depression is usually an ongoing dorsal vagal situation where your vagus nerve is pushed into this continuously, okay? So again, right? Ventral, sympathetic, dorsal vagal. Your system is responding to your brain and your entire body is flowing outward from that. Now, next we have what everyone else sees, the visible part of your reaction. This is the reaction that you have, okay? You react. A reaction is the manifested outward show of what you're experiencing internally. It's what you actually do. It's an observable behavior others can see. It could be the dilating of your pupils or the constricting of them, the heavy, rapid breathing, but it also could be reaching out to your partner. It could be starting to stutter. It can be arguing. It can be crying more. It can be getting up and leaving. It can be the blocked body contact. It can be pursuing with endless text messages. There's a number of things, but it's your behaviors that people begin to see. And this is what damages your relationships, that external expression of your internal state. Now, here's what's important. These reactions are programmed into you in infancy, 0 to 3. So these reactions are you as a child talking to your past caregiver. You're not responding to your current present reality. You're not really talking to your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or friend or boss. You're not talking to that person. You're reacting to childhood wounds, trying to convince your caregiver not to leave you. You're projecting that caregiver onto the current situation and talking to them as if they are that person. We call this transference. This is the pattern of attachment right here. Okay? This is why your childhood does impact your current day. Now, if this sounds outlandish to some of you, some people scoff at this idea. Your brain is projecting the pattern matches from your situation back then to the pattern match here. Your mirroring neurons that activated there are now mirroring into your own neurons here today. That's activating your childhood responses across time and space. You're treating your current person like they are an exact copy of that person. Again, you may not think your wife is your mom, But your brain will say, my wife right now is an exact copy of my mother with the same thoughts, feelings, and reactions. So I must react better than I did then in a way that's more convincing now, but with the same behavioral programming, which is all I know. Now, the person doesn't like being treated that way, and they're confused and unsettled because they don't know what's happening inside. All they see is external reaction, boom. So they're probably going to react to your behavior, probably not in a good way, which will confirm your fears because your parent didn't react in a good way back then, which is why you have a painful pattern. Now, even if their pattern isn't exact, it's not what you want. And that is close enough to activate it. Now, all of this has a very specific neurobiological signature tagged to it. There's a specific neurochemical reality and balance playing out. When you have secure attachment, they create balanced neurochemistry. High oxytocin, because you feel low stress, calm and safe, bonded and cared for. That creates high GABA, which suppresses cortisol. That creates high vasopressin as you solve problems with other people. Although that keeps you in a calm, parasympathetic, rested, digested state to grow more secure and more serotonin levels into your brain. That allows you to have a healthy flow of dopamine flooding through your system, and then calm, low levels of regulated cortisol. That's what a securely attached brain looks like. Insecure patterns create dysregulated neurochemistry. Low oxytocin, low GABA, low serotonin, low vasopressin, unregulated cortisol, and an endless demand for dopamine just to get through like endless blood sugar bumps over and over and over. Now, your attachment style determines your brain chemistry. If you've ever wondered in psychology why they say everyone has mental instability and it's all because of biochemistry and we have to give drugs to people to fix it, the attachment styles are what determine the brain chemistry. So fixing the attachment components is urgent. Now, in healthy, secure relationships, so secure neurochemical balances, oxytocin is supposed to give you bumps every time you interact with family and friends, maybe increases of up to 33%. Dopamine should be a healthy reward response to relationships and things that go well. Serotonin should be stable and supporting your emotional regulation. Cortisol, a normal stress response, it's a quick recovery with low bursts of it. Insecure neurochemical balances by type, anxious people, for example, their oxytocin surges up to 80%, plus 33% on top of that. 113% surges of oxytocin. I finally feel safe. It creates an addiction. Their cortisol is chronically elevated, except when they have those explosions of oxytocin, which gives them GABA to suppress cortisol. So they are endlessly seeking other people to make them feel safe biochemically. Their dopamine spikes up and down and crashes in binge-like patterns tied to oxytocin. Did I get my hit today? An avoidant person, oxytocin production is dampened. The receptors are probably closed from chronic, unregulated cortisol. They don't allow oxytocin bonding, so they don't get much GABA, so their cortisol is fully unregulated. They also have reduced sensor receptivity because their sensors move away from accepting oxytocin over the years as they don't get it. Their dopamine is then blunted in response to social rewards, but increased in response to individual rewards, especially survival-based individual rewards. They have high unregulated cortisol. They don't have bonding hormones with other people because they don't allow it to happen. And then they flood with dopamine as their only option. Now, it's not just about how much of each chemical you get, by the way. It's about the receptors being able to connect. Oxytocin is key. The receptors are like locks. An anxious person has hypersensitive locks, huge responses to even small amounts. An avoidant person has fewer locks because they've moved away and they're less sensitive. They can't feel the connection because it's not safe to. Now, finally, you've got the neurological response, the amygdala hijack, okay? When you're neurologically activated during stress, that trigger is detected. Your thalamus goes in. Which do we put this into? Low. Amygdala, 100 milliseconds. Your amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making judgment area of your brain. You lose access to rational thoughts and executive functions and emotional regulation, gone. Your amygdala is supposed to detect fears, real fears. It's hyperactive in insecurely attached people, and it responds that fast to attachment triggers, almost as if they are physical dangers. The hippocampus is also important to remember here. It's a big portion of your memory formation, and it's smaller with chronic stress. So it can't provide much context the way a securely formed hippocampus can. A lot of people with attachment issues have memory problems, and that's why. You only remember the things that keep you safe instead of having a larger memory that remembers many things. Okay? You're also going to have a lot of problems in other regions of your brain, so many that we can't even get into all of them, but you're hyperactive in a lot of areas. When you're anxious and stressed, you're going to feel social rejection more like pain. You're going to be hyperactive in all kinds of threat detection and keep me safe modes. Now that you understand the complete anatomy of a behavioral response in attachment, let me reframe something very important. You're not broken. These are adaptive behavior patterns. These are patterns that made perfect sense in your childhood environment. They're survival strategies that worked then. They just aren't working now because your brain doesn't recognize the difference of modern world, and your brain is hallucinating fears that aren't really there, and you are biasing yourself into situations where the same things will keep happening. Your brain's number one job is to help keep you alive. It doesn't care if you're happy. It cares if you survive. Happiness comes later after you feel safe and settled, but most people with attachment patterns don't feel safe or settled ever. So happiness is something that you never really get around to. And your brain isn't going to try to get you there through your amygdala and your limbic system. It's going to help you stay alive. Changing, then, feels dangerous because it is dangerous to the brain. I am less likely to survive if I do something risky that I don't have evidence will even reward me. But to make this change work, we have to convince your brain and your nervous system that these changes are even going to help you. But to help you make the changes that we're going to make in this course, we have to convince your nervous system and your brain that your new patterns are safe and will help you. Understanding that your patterns served a purpose before is crucial, but not all patterns are going to serve you equally now. Now, to make the changes happen from this course, we have to convince your nervous system and your brain that these new patterns are safe and will help you. But understanding that your patterns have served you is crucial, and understanding that not all patterns serve you equally is even more important. Let's move into that next, because there are good patterns versus bad patterns. Now, when I say good patterns and bad patterns, I don't mean moral judgments here. You're not a bad person. It's functional versus dysfunctional. Do they move you toward or away from secure attachment? Do they build or destroy relationships? Do they activate healthy or dysregulated neurochemistry? There are some key characteristics to really figure out your functional patterns. Number one, they should create safety for yourself and for other people, mutual safety in the relationship. They should enable genuine vulnerability where you can open up, relax, and start bonding. They should also support your emotional regulation, which grows continuously so that you are more regulated as time goes on. And in fact, trust itself should also be built over time, and especially through healthy, reasonable conflict. These secure patterns also allow for what's called repair after rupture. You have a conflict, you resolve it, but then you fully repair the relationship and feel completely safe, belonging, and connected again. It also should activate your balanced oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin levels. Your prefrontal cortex, the judgment center of your brain, remains engaged instead of being bypassed by the fear circuits. But there are also dysfunctional patterns. Let's talk about those so we can find them right now. Your insecure, dysfunctional patterns will create anxiety or numbness. They'll prevent genuine vulnerability. They'll trigger your dysregulation cycles. They'll erode trust over time. They lead to dysregulated neurochemistry, too much cortisol, erratic oxytocin, or none at all. And your amygdala is driving the whole thing. Your prefrontal cortex is hijacked and turned off a lot of the time. In this system of structures, your prefrontal cortex is hijacked. Your judgment center is offline, and instead your amygdala is driving the whole experience. Your fear circuits are firing, and no one's stopping it. Now that you understand how attachment patterns work, what the circuits are, your brain systems, I want you to understand that there are 8 different subtypes, 4 styles, and 2 subtypes of each. As I've been updating the field of attachment theory, this is what we've discovered and found. Okay, we're going to go through these fairly quickly. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to know. There's a lot more information on my YouTube channel about each of these styles if you need to go deeper. The first style is somebody who is secure, raised secure. You grow up in a secure family. You grow up with those patterns that say, I am cared for, others are safe, my caregivers welcomed my emotions, they provided care consistently, and then you learned and grew more. I'm worthy of love. Others are trustworthy, they're available, they're reliable. I can share my feelings, which creates deeper connection that strengthens my relationships, and so I can reach out openly. This creates a circuit of, I have a feeling. I will find the right person and share that feeling. I will receive support. We will regulate that feeling together. If they ever feel challenged, they directly communicate a need, they seek appropriate support, they build a solution together. Now, as I was updating the field of attachment, I found that a lot of people felt they could never say, I'm secure, if they didn't grow up that way. So I split secure into two. One is secure or raised secure, and the second is remade secure. This is a conscious behavior interruption. You have changed your patterns and become secure over time. The new belief is my automatic patterns don't serve me, so I choose different responses. If you feel an old pattern activating, you pause, you choose a secure response, and you feel better. This means that when a circuit begins to activate, they calm, they notice the activation, they pause, they breathe and regulate, and they choose a secure response. Now, over time, behaviors shift and the brain shifts, and they're less likely to have those old circuits activate, and they have longer gaps, so they can control it better and become more fully relaxed without even having those cycles anymore. The reactions we see is that they have a conscious choice rather than automatic fast responses. And any times that they may be pressured with extreme stress, if they do have a relapse moment, they catch it, they self-correct, and they rebuild with even deeper trust in the future. The nice thing here is that yes, your brain can remap and can change. There are some structures that will look the way they've always looked, but by and large, most of them can remap into healthier structures to give you a fulfilling, peaceful life. Up next is anxious attachment style, and we've split this into two as well. The core of the anxious attachment style is the belief that I am not good enough. I am the problem. I don't make people happy enough. I don't work hard enough. I'm not good enough myself, so other people will abandon me and I will be helpless. The prefrontal cortex, the judgment center, underdevelops emotional regulation and self-safety and says, I need to find people who make me feel safe, and I have to fawn and please them so that they won't leave me, they will pity me enough to stay, and if I work hard enough to make them happy, maybe they'll reward me in the future. There are two subtypes of anxious attachment. First is nurturing anxious. Very low resentment or contempt for others, just a belief that I must help others feel loved. I am only good when I'm making them feel loved. I don't ever want to hurt anyone else, and I understand what it's like to not feel loved, so I have excessively high levels of empathy for everyone else, which often is destructive for me. There's a couple of places here that they have patterns, right? Fear of abandonment leads to an anticipation of the needs of others, leads to overhelping others, leads to creating dependence sometimes in others, and then feeling temporarily safe because you've earned their goodwill. As you provide care for others, your brain says they need me, which says I'm safe from abandonment, which says I must keep helping. This is a compulsive helping state. You are constantly codependent quite often on others and then turn around and get exploited quite often by others. Now, the other side of the anxious cycle is toxic anxious. Higher levels of contempt, lower levels of empathy, lower levels of care, higher levels of resentment. This is the person who's been hurt and hurt and hurt and still believes they aren't worthy of love, but does say, look, I've done enough. Look at my tally sheet. It's a high level of transactional thinking with a lot of hurt and pain. It's not to demonize these people, but they do create toxic cycles. And then when the bill comes due, they are angry it hasn't been paid yet. So even as they struggle with their own self-worth, they struggle even more with believing that other people are going to meet them where they should. The belief with toxic anxious is, if I don't fight for connection, I'll be abandoned. They're more likely to fight, okay? People withdrawing creates an intense pursuit and a confirming fear. So distance means I'm going to be abandoned, which means I'm not good enough, and I have to pursue harder. So when they sense a distance opening, they panic, they pursue intensely, they often will use guilt, look at all I've done for you, which then pushes the person further away, which then renews that distance, the panic, the anger. Because they are constantly feeling hurt, they grow resentful toward others for the pain they're feeling as they stack up all the things they've done. Now, the other side of this coin is avoidant attachment style. Avoidant attachment style has the opposite set of beliefs. I'm okay. It's other people that aren't trustworthy. There's a variety of reasons. We'll talk about that with the two subtypes that break out, but the answer is that no one else is to be trusted. No one's coming to help me. No one's going to rescue me. No one's reliable. I have to do everything myself. This breaks out into two subtypes. Ethical avoidant people who have high levels of empathy for others, high levels of ethical conduct. They have a good self-concept, and they don't want to break it. They're more likely to flee and run away than to fight, and they're not going to lie to others, but they might commit what's called lies of omission. Others are going to believe wrong things, and there's not much I can do about that, but I'm more likely to withdraw than I am to punish or manipulate or hurt. An ethical avoidant person, their brain blocks their oxytocin receptors from stress and does not grow intimacy with anyone. So they've never really understood what it feels like to be close. They have a constant emotional starvation cycle with full unregulated cortisol. So they're always stressed, but they pride themselves on being the most disciplined of all because they rarely explode. Now, their foundational beliefs is needing others is weak. Independence is virtue. I protect people by not needing them, and I protect myself by keeping them out. Their algorithm activates when they feel somebody else needs something from them, or they need something from someone else. They suppress that internal need and handle it alone, or they encourage other people to suppress their need and handle it alone. They maintain their core integrity, and they avoid being a burden, or they maintain their boundaries and avoid being engulfed and swallowed by other people. Here's what's really tricky. If they find a deep emotional need in themselves, they'll actually judge it as a weakness. So they'll withdraw to handle it completely independently. And as they stuff it down and dissociate from it and tune it out, they'll begin to feel proud that they conquered their own emotional weakness, but a growing loneliness gets worse and worse and worse. Now, the opposite side of the avoidance spectrum is manipulative avoidant. Their thinking is that vulnerability is a weakness. I have to dominate others or I will be dominated. Sometimes I might even have to hurt others before they can hurt me. Other people will do worse to me than I would do to them, so whatever I have to justify, I can. They usually have high levels of contempt for others. They mock them. They put them in their place by hurting them emotionally. The thinking here is this: someone gets close to me, I hurt them. They back off. I'm safe from pain. What's happening here is their amygdala detects closeness as an absolute threat. It believes other people essentially function almost as sociopaths without any level of empathy or ethics at all, which is where their contempt comes from. So when they get intimacy, they feel threatened. They attack to push them back. If they have a need, they attack and demand. They attack preemptively from someone who's not even hurting them, which creates distance, and then they feel powerful and safe, but internally they begin to feel even more empty, which is going to lead into an ugly cycle as time goes on. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is distinguished from narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, or sociopathic tendencies, because this person is only activating in stress moments when they feel vulnerable or weak or close to somebody. Now, these are terrible behaviors, I'm going to say, but we're also not here to demonize these people because they are reacting in a moment, but might be wonderful, genuinely kind people with real empathy in other moments. This is not a personality disorder, but it's also not really tolerable or okay inside relationships. This can be abusive. Now, the fourth attachment style and the seventh and eighth subtypes are for those of you who are watching this right now saying, Adam, is it possible to be both? I recognize some avoidant tendencies and some anxious feelings. Yes, you can be both. It requires usually a lot more trauma and pain in childhood. The belief for what's called disorganized style, which is cannot be neatly organized into either category, their belief is love and pain are inseparable. Connection means danger, but I have to have connection. I both need and fear my loved ones at the same time. Their explosive reactions in loud disorganized, or the freeze responses in quiet disorganized, are completely misunderstood. We'll talk about those subtypes here in a moment, but as people misunderstand them, it confirms their unworthiness and their danger. The belief in loud disorganized, which is very different from quiet disorganized, is getting close to people is terrifying and dangerous. So as they get close to others and it feels good, they panic. It creates a desperate just craving, an addiction. I must be close to you. That oxytocin explosion, 113%, which then leads to I'm in danger because I'm addicted to you and you could use that against me. And if we get too close, I'll get hurt. So now I have to avoid. Imagine slamming the gas and the brake pedals in your car as hard as you can, flooring both of them, and your engine redlining as a result. That's loud disorganized style. So they often explode. It could mean yelling, screaming, fighting, setting the curtains on fire. It could also just mean sabotaging the relationship, running out and cheating, and then wondering, why did I do that? It can be so many things, but it's a sabotage, and it's completely irrational that even they don't understand. It destroys the connection, and then they're left haunted by what happened, which confirms the fear that I'm not lovable, relationships are painful, and there is no hope. So again, they feel a connection. Their terror rises. They lash out in some way. They push the person away. They panic at the loss. They pull back in, and then they repeat and repeat and repeat, either with that person or with a variety of people. Their fear, though, is intimacy and closeness. And finally, quiet disorganized. Now, psychology has been around for about 145 years, roughly. And in that time, we have never found the quiet disorganized people, not as a problem that we could work with them and help them to solve. There's been characters in history throughout literature and all kinds of media that have had these traits, but we've almost romanticized them and thought they were adorable. It doesn't happen to be adorable living in this freeze state with perpetual fear and trauma. It's an invisible suffering that quiet, disorganized people live in. Their idea is that being visible at all is dangerous. I must disappear in my relationships to survive. No one will ever help me anyway. If they feel a need, just like the avoidant person, they hide it. They suffer silently. They tune it out until they don't have that need anymore. They stay safe through invisibility. They're more likely to caretake more explosive, outrageous partners and fall into taking care of their needs and being invisible inside the bigger person's personality and just give them whatever they want to please them. Fawning feels safe because they can't fly away. They can't fight. That was beaten out of them in childhood, sometimes literally. And now they fawn and give, or they collapse into a freeze. This is where we see the freeze response most, is with these individuals. So when others need something from them, or when they're in a social situation, they perceive pressure and expectation. Then they perceive social pressure and social pain and social danger. So they try to figure out what to do, but because they weren't trained into socialization healthy-wise in their damaging childhoods, they don't know what to do, and they draw a complete blank, which sends them into a panic, which shuts down all of their speech centers, all of their thinking, and they go blank and flat. Even their face loses all expression, and they look disinterested, like they don't care. And then other people feel disregarded and pushed aside. They are deeply misunderstood with that vagal dorsal shutdown, and then treated like a rude person who doesn't care, which then reinforces the loop that other people will misunderstand and hurt me, so I need to be more invisible. These are some of the most capable people on the planet, usually, not always, maybe financially independent, right? Everyone says you've got everything together. Their family comes to them to loot money from them all the time. They have very poor boundaries, and they never know what anyone wants from them. They're just in a constant, perpetual, daily cycle of fear and freezing. Now, those are the 8 subtypes and the 4 attachment styles. Here's what you understood from this video. First, you've got the complete anatomy of attachment styles, from childhood experiences through neurobiological coding. You've got those 8 distinct styles with their key patterns decoded. You understand how your nervous system and brain chemistry create and maintain these patterns. This isn't a personality, by the way. You weren't born this way. It's neurobehavioral programming that can be changed. Now, you likely saw yourself in multiple patterns we talked about here today, and that's normal. We humans, we are complex, especially when we get hurt. We become more complex. The goal here is not perfection. It's increasing your secure patterns. Awareness is just the first step, which is what we're doing here today. Now, in video 2, I'm going to show you how to identify these patterns in yourself and in other people real time. You're going to learn the specific signs and signals of attachment activation. That will help you master your pattern interrupts that will actually work. Now, I know these patterns feel permanent, but let's be clear, they're not. Your brain has neuroplasticity, which means it can rewire. Plastic meaning moldable. Your brain can be molded through experience. Video 3 will show you the exact skills and experiences needed to remold your brain. You can transform from any of these insecure styles we talked about to remade secure. And if you do nothing else, watch all 3 of those videos so you fully understand. You now understand what attachment styles really are. Not just labels, but specific neurobiological programmings running in your brain and your body. In the next video, we'll teach you how to catch these patterns as they're happening and interrupt them before they damage your relationships. This is where the real transformation begins.